I was only 22 when I first met Daniel. I remember the day so clearly. It was one of those days when everything felt ordinary, but it turned into something I could never have anticipated. I had just started working at a local bookstore after finishing my first year of college. I was studying literature, my dream to write novels someday tucked away in the back of my mind. I wasn't looking for anything serious, just a simple job to help with expenses and a way to get my feet wet in the adult world. But then Daniel walked in. He was older than me, in his late 30s, with salt and pepper hair and deep blue eyes that immediately drew me in. He had this calm, steady presence about him, a quiet confidence that made him stand out in a crowd. He was browsing through the aisles, and as I made my way over to ask if he needed help, we struck up a conversation. It wasn't anything special at first, just small talk about books and authors. But there was something in the way he listened to me, something in the way he made me feel seen that I had never experienced before. Over the next few weeks, he became a regular visitor at the bookstore, often stopping by in the evenings after work. Our conversations grew deeper. He would tell me stories about his life, his work, and his family. He had a wife, 3 kids, and a life that was well established. He spoke with such affection when he mentioned them, and I couldn't help but admire the way he spoke about his children, their accomplishments, their little quirks, the way they lit up his life. And yet, despite everything he had, something about the way he looked at me made me feel like I was the only person in the room. At first, I dismissed it as nothing more than a fleeting connection. After all, I knew he was married, and I respected that. I wasn't looking for trouble or drama. But the more we talked, the more I found myself drawn to him in a way I couldn't explain. It wasn't about physical attraction, not entirely. It was something deeper. A feeling of connection, of understanding something unspoken that I couldn't ignore. The first time I realized I was in love with him was a moment I will never forget. We were sitting together at the bookstore late one evening, the place nearly empty except for the 2 of us. The sun had set, and the soft glow of the store's lights cast a warm ambiance around us. He was telling me about his childhood, about how he had always dreamed of becoming an architect before life had taken him in a different direction. There was something so vulnerable in his voice, a raw honesty that made me feel like I was seeing the real him, not the man with a family or a career, but the person he was when the world wasn't watching. As he spoke, I realized that I had fallen for him, not because he was perfect, but because he was real. He wasn't just the family man I saw in passing, or the guy with all the answers. He was someone who had dreams, regrets, and a life that wasn't as polished as it appeared. I found myself wanting to know him more, wanting to be a part of his world in some way, even though I knew it wasn't right. I tried to push my feelings away, tried to convince myself that I could move on, that I didn't need to get tangled up in something complicated. But love doesn't listen to logic, and it doesn't follow the rules. Over the months that followed, my feelings for Daniel only grew stronger, even though I knew the boundaries. I knew he was married, I knew he had kids, and yet the more we talked, the more I became convinced that there was something real between us. It was a feeling that I didn't want to acknowledge, but one that was too strong to ignore. I remember one night, when he stayed a little later than usual, just as the bookstore was about to close. He looked at me, his eyes soft but intense. "I'm really glad we met," he said. "I don't think I've met anyone who understands me the way you do." His words hit me like a ton of bricks. I wanted to tell him how I felt, but the words caught in my throat. How could I? He was married, and I knew that nothing good could come from pursuing this. Still, a part of me couldn't help but wish for more, for a life where we could be together, where I didn't have to worry about the consequences of loving someone who couldn't love me back in the way I wanted. The truth is, love is never as simple as it seems, and this was a lesson I had to learn the hard way. One evening, a few weeks later, I was at the bookstore when I saw Daniel walk in with his wife and kids. I froze. I had seen them before, but this time it felt different. I tried to smile as he approached, but the tension in my chest made it hard to breathe. He introduced me to his wife Sarah and his children, who were all full of energy and excitement. They were a beautiful family, and I could see how much they meant to him. But in that moment, something shifted inside me. I realized that I could never have the life I imagined with him. He had his family. He got everything I wanted, but he wasn't mine to have. The reality of the situation hit me like a wave. I'd been fooling myself into thinking that maybe, just maybe, we could be together. But the truth was, I could never come between a family. I could never take that from his children, from his wife. I had to let go. Over the next few weeks, I distanced myself. I stopped seeing Daniel as often. And when I did, our conversations were brief, polite. I couldn't bear the thought of seeing him and feeling the ache in my heart, knowing that he would never be mine. It hurt more than I ever thought possible, but I knew it was the right thing to do. And then one day he came to me, as he had so many times before, and asked me how I was doing. I smiled, though it felt forced. He could see the sadness in my eyes, and I could see the concern in his. He reached for my hand, and in that moment, I felt everything. The years of unspoken emotions, the longing, the desire, the pain. But I pulled my hand back before he could say anything more. "I can't do this anymore," I said, my voice barely a whisper. He looked at me confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I can't keep seeing you like this," I replied. "I've fallen in love with you, Daniel, but I know it's not right. You have your family, I'm not a part of that, and I never will be." He stood still for a moment, looking at me with a mixture of sadness and regret. "I don't know what to say," he said quietly. "I didn't ask for this. I didn't want to hurt you." "I know," I said, my voice trembling. "But I have to let go. It's the only way for both of us." And that was it. That was the moment when I finally let go. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but it was also one of the most important. I had to let go of the love I had for him and accept that some loves were not meant to be. I had to learn that sometimes love doesn't always work out the way we want it to, no matter how deep the connection may be. As the weeks went by, I found peace. It wasn't easy, but I knew I had made the right decision. I had to love myself enough to let go of something that wasn't mine. And in doing so, I learned that true love is not about possession or desire, but about respect. Respecting ourselves and respecting the people we care about. It's about knowing when to walk away, even if it's the hardest thing to do. This story reflects the complexity of love, the difficulty of letting go, and the emotional maturity required to make tough decisions. The journey is one of self-discovery, respect, and growth, which ultimately leads to the realization that some loves, no matter how strong, aren't meant to be. The focus is on learning to love oneself and understanding the importance of boundaries and mutual respect in relationships.